Good morning and welcome back. It's Tom Christie from Ashland, Nebraska, and this is session 6 of carving the preening hen mallard. And today we're going to look at mounting the head and then fairing that into the body, kind of finishing the carving today. So this should be the last session in the carving series for this particular decoy. So let's get started on that. Thanks for coming back. This is a time, these are subtle adjustments, but I think they're important adjustments. Sometimes it's very subtle things, particularly in competitive carving, that will make or break your carving as it compares to others. You can see the position of the head here. What I'm thinking about doing is cocking the head just at a slight angle, just to kind of convey she's really digging in. And then moving the bill back to here and relieving some of this area so I can drop the tip of the bill down a bit and bury it in the scapulars there. So I've been going back and forth on that, but I think I like a little bit of a tilt to the head. And in order to do that, I'm going to take a little bit off this side of the head in the bandsaw, and then we'll come back and take a look at that. Okay, I've kind of penciled in a guideline for myself on about how much I want to take off there. I'm going to do this very carefully. Hold on to the head good and tight. Just took a sliver off there. Okay, now we'll reposition the head. You can see that it didn't take much to kind of tilt the head in that direction, which is what I'm looking for, what I want. Again, this is very subtle, but sometimes subtle things make a difference. I think that's about where I want it. So now I'm going to work on where is the bill going to hit the scapulars here so that I can anchor the tip of the bill in the scapulars when I'm gluing the head on. I'm just going to mark this area where I've determined I want the bill to rest. And I'll take just a little bit of wood out of this area so that we can embed that in the tip of the bill somewhat. I'm going to use this pyramid-shaped ruby bit and just use that to gouge out carefully, following that guideline of where I want the bill to dig into the scapulars. I'm not going to take a lot out here. I mean, that's up to you how deep you want to bury the bill. Just keep in mind, if you make it deep, it's going to change the angle of the head, and then you just need to make adjustments on where the head interacts with the neck. So I'm going to try that out. That looks pretty good. I think I'm happy with that. And that'll just give us an anchor point out there at the tip of the bill. Now I want to work on the fit of the head to the neck and just make sure I've got good contact between the head and the neck. This is a kind of an age-old approach, is use a pencil to put some pencil marks on the neck and then scoot the head back and forth across there, and it'll leave a mark on the bottom of the head where the high spots are. And then I'm just going to use a little fine grinder here to take off the high spots. Go back and do it again, scoot it back and forth. The better the fit there, the less filling we have to do, and the better contact the epoxy will have between the two parts. I'm kind of off screen there with that grinding, but you get the idea here. It's kind of an iterative process to keep going back and forth and just develop a really nice fit between the head and the neck. And that looks pretty good. After doing that pencil on there, I'm just taking some coarse sandpaper, getting the graphite back off of that shelf, because we don't want anything prohibiting good bonding between the head and the neck. Now, if this were a gunning decoy, I would use a wooden dowel as I attach the head. Since this is going to be a kind of a decorative smoothie for the mantle, I'm going to go ahead and glue the head here and also here, and both of those are going to really fasten that head tight with no problem. Okay, I'm using DevCon 5-minute 2-part epoxy and an old paintbrush handle, which works good for, you know, when your paintbrushes are worn out, save the handles. They make great glue sticks. Make sure the 2 parts are mixed thoroughly. Then I'm going to apply that liberally. If we get a little glue running out, that's not going to be a killer or showstopper. I'm going to put a little glue down in this recessed area for the bill and not go overboard on that, because I don't want a lot of glue under the bill area. And then I like to apply glue to both surfaces just to make sure there's no pockets with, and I like to get it on my hands, so keep a rag handy. And you have to work relatively fast with this 5-minute epoxy, because it's going to dry in 5 minutes. So once I get it in position, I'm going to rock it back and forth just a little bit so that there's good adhesion. I can see glue coming out. I'm going to try to remove any glue that I don't want to have to grind off later, and lock that right in. You can see I've got a little bit of shelf there, and that's not a problem. We're going to use some plastic wood to blend the head into the neck. Take off excess glue so I don't have to grind it off later. We'll let that set and then come back and use the plastic wood to blend that into the head into the body. All right, now that that glue is dried, we can start working. You can see we need to match the neck up with the head on both sides, and I really look forward to this part of the process, because it's kind of the final sculpting to tie everything together. I'm going to use this teardrop shaped burr because a ruby bit, as soon as it hits that epoxy, is going to load up. So a burr in this case I find is more helpful. I'm just going to do some rough shaping here, and then we'll do some sanding to finish things up. Okay, I'm just using that teardrop shape burr and going back and blending things in. Now that the head is positioned, it gives you a much better feel for where that neck is going to curl up and interface with the head. We want to maintain that twisted look, not too exaggerated, but just to complement the twist of the preening head. So I'm just going to work this back and forth. I'll speed up the video here. Just carrying that back of the head down to the back of the neck area to complement the twist in the head. Now I need to remove some material under the neck here to blend that in. I'm taking out any excess glue with the burr while I'm in there, so I'm not loading up a ruby bit with that later. That looks pretty good. Now I'm going to use the sanding drum, and I've taken off most of the glue so it won't load up the sanding drum, and now I just want to blend everything in, remove the burr scratches or marks, and get a nice blend overall. Just smoothing everything out and pulling that neck into the breast area, making sure there's nice continuity of that curvature of the neck as the head goes into the neck and into the breast. Now I'm just going to use sandpaper and hand sand the area just as a final, to get to those areas that are hard to get. There's no substitute for hand sanding. It's not my favorite part of the process, but it's a necessity. Now I'm going back to that ruby flame shape bit because I want to work on this interface where the neck meets the body and make sure that that's nice and clean down there. This is where I may go back and forth between a couple of different ruby bit shapes to do what I need to do here to tie that neck in, and then again hand sand the area to finish up. Want to put a little more definition in that area where the neck meets the back. More sanding. Now that I have that neck shaped up the way I want it, I'm going to use this little flame shape burr, and I'm going to go right at that glue seam and just relieve a little bit and recess that area. Notice I'm not grinding too much around. I'm just focused on that seam because that is the seam that we want to hide, and I'm going to use a little plastic wood to do that. And this needs to be a deep enough recess that it gives enough bonding area for the plastic wood to hold on to, but it doesn't need to be a deep 1/4 inch gouge. So I'm just going around the entire head and relieving that area in preparation for using that plastic wood to fair in the head to the neck. It's an important step because that glue seam will be very obvious if we don't get rid of it. Now I'm going to use plastic wood and acetone solvent to blend the head into the neck. I'm going to use the acetone first to kind of clean the joint. I did have a good question from a viewer that wondered if I had any trouble with plastic wood cracking, and I haven't, but I try to minimize the amount I use. But that doesn't mean it's the best thing to use. It's just what I've been using. So if the viewers out there have some better options, just leave a comment and it'll help me, and it might help some other carvers take a look at what types of materials we should be using to blend the neck into the head. Kind of got the plastic wood spread, and I'm just using an old brush and the acetone to smooth the plastic wood and make sure it feathers out nicely into the rest of the carving. So this takes some time, but smoothing like this with acetone will save a lot of sanding later. You can almost get it to where it just takes a light sanding to finish it off. To show you a quick close-up of the plastic wood after it's been applied and smoothed with the acetone. And then we'll let that dry and do a final sanding. And then sometimes you have to touch up, you know, if you can still see a little head seam, you want to touch that up with a little extra plastic wood and take care of it that way. Sometimes it takes a couple of applications just to, the goal is to hide that head seam so that after the decoy is painted, you're not going to see that at all. I'm going to do one more thing with the plastic wood, and I like, in a preening position, I like to be able to add a little detail. I hope you can see that, where there's a scapular feather or a cape feather kind of up and over, just conveys the preening position better than. I've lost the focus on this section of the video, and I apologize for that, but basically I'm going to use acetone to clean the area around where I want to put this additional feather detail, and I'm using a little dollop of plastic wood and pressing that into the back and up onto the bill. And then I'm just going to use the paintbrush with acetone and shape that so that it begins to curl up and over the side of the bill there. And this just takes a little while. I'm going to speed up the video. Just continuing to work this with the acetone and feather it out up onto the bill so there's not a hard line between this and the bill. And I'm going to show you a close-up that will be back in focus here in just a second, but this gives you an idea of the process. I'm just looking for softness all the way around. Here's a close-up shot of what that area looks like. Just put a picture in here so you can get a good look at it. Well, the Preening Hen Mallard is shaping up pretty good. I'm pretty pleased with the way she looks so far. And I'll let that dry, do some light sanding over the entire bird. And I think I will add one more video. I've had questions about how do you seal up a bird, and we'll go through that. It'll be a quick video, and then prime coat the bird so it's ready to paint. I have had questions about, am I going to paint this bird in these how-to videos? I am going to do a video on painting this bird, but I've been selling my painting videos on my website. Jump over there and check it out. There's a link up at the top of the YouTube channel that'll take you right to my website. I have 9 different species of painting videos. They're about 50 minutes long, and they'll take you from beginning to end on a bird like this. So this will be the 10th video that I have available for painting. It'll probably take me a few weeks to get that ready to go. In the meantime, I've enjoyed carving this bird with you. I'll see you next time. Tom Christie signing off.